views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, good evening. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to journalists, reporters, editors, writers, sometimes filmmakers, sometimes artists, sometimes photographers, anybody who puts stuff out in the Bronx. In our second segment this evening, we're going to talk about a very interesting art program exhibit that's going to be at one of the libraries in the Bronx. And right now, though, we're going to get started with our buddy Claudia Aponte from the city. Nice to have you with us once again, Claudia.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Claudia, you wrote an article which I thought was fascinating. We've been back and forth down the block and around the corner on this for a very long time. And that is the notion that the city wants to cancel the contract for Trump Enterprises to operate the Ferry Point golf course. And I say that with a deep breath because we've been canceled, not canceled, back and forth on this. Where are we at right now?
Right. So right now, it's still unclear exactly who's going to be in charge of the golf course once the contract with the Trump organization. First of all, if it is effectively canceled, it's under litigation right now. So earlier this year, after the January 6th insurrection on the Capitol, Mayor de Blasio moved to cancel its contracts with the Trump organization. That meant the ice skating rinks in Central Park, the Central Park Carousel, and the Trump Ferry Points Link golf course in the Bronx, Throgs Neck, overlooking the Whitestone Bridge. And then last Monday, the city posted a notice, the Parks Department quietly posted a notice announcing that it had awarded a no-bid contract to an LLC, without really any sort of name recognition. Its name was Ferry Points Links LLC. Turns out that LLC was affiliated with Core Services Group, and one of the largest homeless shelter contractors in the city, to operate the golf course. It's unclear why the city awarded the contract to this company, but as it turns out, this company has a spotty record of managing homeless shelters even, and no record of operating golf courses in the city. And after we first reported on the deal, they dropped out of the project. They were also the subject of a investigation in the New York Times over the weekend, a pretty devastating investigation for the company, detailing a lot of backdealing by its chief executive, Jack Brown III, who earned nearly $1 million as a nonprofit homeless shelter operator.
What a mess. Can we say what a mess at this point? There's so much in there. First of all, I'm unfamiliar off the top of my head with the legal proceedings. How can the city, for something like that, just offer a no bid contract? They can just decide. And then, of course, we'd like to certainly trace back how we got to this organization, why they are getting, the contract for this very high profile recreation facility. I'm asking you. I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's definitely something that we are trying to figure out ourselves. The mayor himself does not know. Today in his daily press conference, he said that he doesn't know why Core Services Group was
He doesn't know?
No, he said that he doesn't know why Core Services Group was awarded the contract in the first place. Just to be clear, that they do not have the contract anymore.
My jaw is dropped deliberately. He doesn't know?
Yeah. It's been a whirlwind trying to catch up with the ins and outs of this story, but they do not have the contract at the moment. There's a firm, an Atlanta-based firm called Bobby Jones Links. They are a golf course operator based out of Georgia, and they now will be handling the concession, but it still begs the question, why is the city awarding no bid contracts to either of these companies?
To anybody?
Core Services Group. What exactly is going on?
So, it's mind-blowing, really. If you take a step back, you've got this situation. It's highly politicized, obviously, no matter how you deny it. It's even a legal question. The justification that the mayor put out was that there was criminal activity in Donald Trump's involvement with the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Now, many people believe that Trump, is guilty of that, but that has not been proven by any court of law. That's an assumption that the mayor has made as justification for removal of the contract. So if you're going to do that, let's just say, okay, you've decided, you've talked to your lawyers, you've decided you're on good legal ground. Wouldn't you make sure that when you open this high profile property up, that you're going to do it absolutely above board, that the city is going to do it right? We're not going to get into anything that's questionable. And then to have it be in this situation where there's no bid contracts. No bid contracts is a red flag in New York City, no matter what the contract is.
Totally. And what
I'm asking a rhetorical question, I guess.
And just to be clear, the argument that the de Blasio administration made in its decision to end its contracts with the Trump organization was that in the case of the golf course specifically, that the affiliation with the Trump brand, and everything, and the fallout of the insurrection would mean that the name of the golf course bearing the Trump name would be tarnished, and thus, decreasing the chances of a major tournament coming to the golf course, and, affecting business in the city. That is kind of like the reason on paper in the legal filings, because of course the Trump organization's legal team challenged and is challenging the city's decision in court at the moment. The Trump organization is arguing that, first of all, it's not in our contract whether or not that we are required to bring tournaments of this caliber to the Bronx, but also they are arguing that we have brought PGA level tournaments in the past. These are their arguments in court. It's messy, and we still don't know where this is gonna.
And again, if you're going to do that, if that's the decision you make, you got to do it completely above board, because then they're going to say you threw us out, but look at what you're doing. You're just, well, whatever. So we don't know. And the next step is what is a court hearing, or somebody to slap the mayor and say, wake up? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen here.
So there's going to be a public hearing on the actual contract award for the golf course on October 12th. It's a virtual hearing. I wish I could share the information on where to stream it right now, but I just don't have it on the top of my head. It's available on the city record posted this morning. So there will be a hearing on October 12th about the contract and about the project in general. In terms of the lawsuit between the Trump organization and the city, there are no hearings set yet, but they're constantly, litigating this in the court and uploading documents.
Well, guess what? For better or for worse, you are going to be our guru, and as the thing develops, we'll call you back and bring you in and try and sort this out one way or the other. The other thing that you recently wrote about that I do want to talk about, because obviously this so-called second go-round with a COVID, slightly different, maybe largely different from the original, but a story you wrote was certainly troubling, saying that doctor trainees said that there were, the word you used in the headline was grueling pandemic work conditions in public hospitals. Who was it that said it, and what did they find?
For sure. So the city council several weeks ago held an oversight hearing to listen to residents and interns who work at New York City public hospitals, just to hear more details about the working conditions that they have endured during the pandemic and just as part of their medical training. This was a result, unfortunately, of a spate of suicides among medical residents at Lincoln Hospital in the South Bronx. There was an 8-month period starting late last year up until February of this year, where 3 residents died, 2 of them by suicide. It's unclear where exactly they died, but they were working at the hospital at the time of their death. And I spoke with several colleagues of these young doctors, and they mentioned that they're very tight-knit group. They work backbreaking hours together. So they obviously grow pretty close. And they mentioned that in the case of one of the doctors who died, that he had been struggling with his mental health, that they had been working very grueling hours, that they were picked on. And, the image that really came out of the situation at Lincoln is something that was reflected in the oversight hearing from residents and interns who work at other New York City public hospitals.
I mean, I'm completely sympathetic to a health professional who has other mental issues and other considerations, and certainly sympathetic to all of them, and with tremendous respect for even working. Were there conditions in the hospital either not protecting personnel appropriately in with this very contagious disease, and other issues, cleanliness or understaffing or other things that potentially could drive somebody to even take their own life?
Yeah, we may never know exactly why these young doctors, died by suicide. But one picture that does emerge from the testimony of the residents and interns who testified before the city council last month is that certainly understaffing, a general just like grueling and very competitive culture within the hospital,
Really?
a lack of resources does, affect their mental health and affects their ability to complete the job. I've heard from residents and interns at Lincoln and elsewhere who complete a lot of out of title work. That's work outside of their job description, like literally, that they're in charge of completing phlebotomy tasks, changing sheets, transferring patients in and out of wards. Tasks,
that maybe somebody else ought to be doing.
Right.
Before we let you go, when you say competitive, what do you mean competitive? People trying to get the better jobs, or I'm not quite sure what you meant by competitive. When you say, well, there was competition between people.
Totally. Definitely, again, a picture that emerged in Lincoln and in other hospitals is a culture of fear and retaliation in general, just like competitiveness. Yeah, retaliation from attendings and other people above who, a general feel of fear of talking about mental health issues in general, a culture of what residents perceive as favoritism and like, so-and-so doesn't treat me as fairly as this other person because they just don't like me. They have told me that they don't like me.
And also that feeds into a lack of support if we think of, for example, police officers who work under some incredible conditions and have to deal with horrible things. And certainly in the hospital in this day and age more than ever. Anyway, Claudia Aponte from the city, thank you so much for joining us. Your work is great. We need you, and we're going to have you back. Not only as this story develops, but as the Trump golf course story develops as well, and anything else that you're working on.
Totally. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to go to the Huntington Free Library for some artwork. Don't go away.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Arthur Tran.
Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently, learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. And we certainly appreciate Claudia from the city for joining us. But right now, let's change gears and say hello to two Bronx buddies of mine. And we'll say good evening to artist Lovie Pignata. Nice to have you with us, Lovie.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And also the president, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please. The president of the Huntington Free Library is Angel Hernandez. Nice to have you with us, Angel.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me.
The whole idea here is scratching the surface, and we're going to talk about that specifically. But the Huntington Free Library is a lot different than other Bronx libraries. Some people know about it, some people don't. Why not ask the president of the Huntington Free Library to tell us all about it so people are all on the same page with us?
So the Huntington Free Library was founded in 1891. And it's a private library. It's not part of the New York Public Library branches or the other library systems here in the city. The Huntington Free Library has a collection where people can come do research on Bronx history. We also have a collection of rare books as well. We have some books on Native Americans and other parts of American history. But what makes us really special is that we predate the Bronx. The Bronx borough was 1898. It became a county in 1914. So the Huntington Free Library has that history, and it's been serving the Bronx community ever since it was founded. So not only do we have our collections here, we have our lectures, a lot of them hosted by the East Bronx History Forum. We have exhibitions here, and we do a couple of other things. A couple of years ago, several years back, we had some filmings here. Boardwalk Empire filmed a couple of episodes here. So the Huntington Free Library is more than your library. It's an institute for Bronx history. It's a community space, and it's a vestige of our borough's past as well.
And we should do location, right? The location is in near Westchester Square, right?
Yeah, Westchester Square. We're at the heart of Westchester Square. A lot of people don't know that Westchester Square is the very first settlement, by Europeans in Bronx history. It goes back to 1650, 55. And
that is before I was born. Let's be very clear.
I think he was in college. No, just kidding, Gary.
No. I mean, Bronx Talk was to be developed soon after that in BronxNet television.
Of course.
Not quite that far back.
Westchester Square has almost 400 years of history, and even dating back before that with Native American history. So not only would you find Huntington Free Library here at Westchester Square, just across the street, we have St. Peter's Church, which was the first congregation to be founded in what we now call the Bronx. We have, there's just so much here. I could just go forever on the history here. But you can find that all here at Huntington Free Library. We have all the books. In fact, I'm putting together an exhibition, and part of that is Westchester Square history. So if anyone's interested and wants to know more about it, they can just come visit us here.
Just stop by. It's kind of hidden there behind some of the trees and things, and I know you've spent a lot of time, kind of refurbishing it and getting it a square. On that note, let's talk about Collis Potter Huntington. And you are, it's funny, people celebrate their birthdays. We're going to be celebrating Collis Potter Huntington's 200th birthday later this month.
Right? Yeah.
So, he's not going to be there, presumably.
Nope, he's always here, actually. He's always here.
His own way.
I mean,
tell me a little bit about that celebration.
So Collis P. Huntington, a lot of people don't know that he was a millionaire, and he was also responsible in getting the Transcontinental Railroad connected. He was owner of the South Pacific Railroad, and he was a big patron of the arts. he donated so much money to different institutions. His son, Archie Huntington, founded the Hispanic Society, which is still in operation. And there's other institutions throughout the country. Well, Collis P. Huntington, his birthday is October 22nd. And we owe so much to this gentleman because he gave us this library. You know, the library didn't start off as a Huntington Free Library. It was actually built from the funds of Peter Van Schaik. In his will, he had put funds aside to build a library for the town of Westchester. So it started off as the Van Schaik library, but there was some controversy where the people, so the people of Westchester, there was some controversy where they didn't want to pay for the rest of the construction of the library. So the library sat, this small little structure. It had a half completed roof. It was just a shell. And it was unfortunate that they just couldn't get the library built. So here comes Collis P. Huntington at a time where you had other billionaires donating money to libraries like J.P. Morgan, Carnegie. You know, they were building all these libraries throughout the city. So Collis P. Huntington, he wanted in on the action. So he saw this opportunity at Westchester Square to finish this library.
So I want to move it forward. So he's really at the center of local.
Absolutely.
And why is, and now we're going to bring in Lovie Pignata in the dialogue in just a moment. Why is this the appropriate place for Lovie's Scratching the Surface art program?
So first off, Lovie is a friend of the Huntington Free Library. She's done a lot. She's a friend to everybody. She's used our facilities. She's done some great programming here. So it was a no-brainer. The Huntington Free Library, as I mentioned, is not just a library. It's a place for the community. It's a place for the arts. It's a place for culture, for history. So Lovie approached me with the idea to have these workshops. And we thought about the birthday coming up. And we thought just mashing the two ideas together and coming up with what we see here on the screen, which is a celebration. You know, her workshops leading up to the celebration. So this is a no-brainer.
Got it. So Lovie, let's bring you in the conversation. And I do understand that we've had some Wi-Fi issues, but I think we'll be able to hear you just fine. Explain to me what Scratching the Surface is and how this artwork might be different from other drawing or painting or artist programs and workshops that we have.
Scratching the Surface is a 5-part process. I like the idea of the wordplay, scratching the surface of the history, because it's an unknown spot to many, as well as discovering Bronx facts while you're drawing. So the workshop will be drawing 2 different still lifes, first with pencil, then with a permanent marker, then we're coloring them in with crayons and crayons, then a layer of black paint goes over and covers the entire painting, and there we scratch out different designs into the surface of the painting and to create the image.
And have you done these kinds of paintings before? Is this kind of experimental for you, or is it something that you've done for a little while and you just kind of want to share this technique with others?
This technique I originally did when I was 14 years old. And I didn't like to wear my glasses in class, and I drew this still life without my glasses because I was in a new high school. I was, you know, self-conscious. So I drew this without the glasses and just kind of went through the pieces of it and wasn't really into the project. And then it won a pretty large award at a show. Wow. My teacher entered it into a show. And so it came about in an odd way, but it was a nice process to learn when you know, I was drawing it almost blindly. Wow. So I know that people that don't draw as well can get it together to get some image on the paper to color. Right. So everybody knows how to color.
Who should be thinking about coming in? Age, artistic ability? I mean, just give me the invitation.
The ability level doesn't matter. Anybody can do a part of, you know, all the parts of this project and come up with something that I think they'll enjoy. Whether or not it's what they thought it was going to be when they started is one thing. Also, it's ages 10 and up. I just think attention span for the hour-and-a-half class. So, yeah, 10 and up and any level.
Got it. Do you need to register ahead of time? I guess that's always a good idea.
Yes, Eventbrite.
So we go to Eventbrite and look for Huntington Free Library and do that. Angel, let's just talk about bringing people in. This is the kind of activity that brings people into the library, isn't it? I mean, you plan to do more of them? Have you done others like this? Just put it in context for me.
So in 2019, right before the pandemic, we did have an event where there were artists here. It was a comedy show, right? But then pandemic happened. We had to close because we couldn't have any groups. So we were using the library for food distributions. So Lovie's workshops would be one of the very first programs at the library since we were reopening. Actually, she's doing 2 workshops before we announce our opening, which is going to be October 22nd.
That's right, the 20th and 21st. So people can check it out on Eventbrite and get registered that way. And what are the website or other contact info for people who are interested? Angel.
Well, you could go to huntingtonfreelibrary.org. My email is very easy. It's president@huntingtonfreelibrary.com.
.org.
It's actually, my email is .com.
Oh, .com. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Right, but the website is huntingtonfreelibrary.org. So feel free to drop me a note.
Great. Lovie Pignata, congratulations on this thing that you learned many years ago that's now going to really be something in a very wonderful place in the Bronx, and for all your contributions and your great artwork that you do in the borough of the Bronx. I know you just do amazing work. And Angel, thanks as always. We have questions. You tend to have the answers. That's pretty cool. So thank you both, Lovie Pignata, artist and the president of the Huntington Free Library, Angel Hernandez. And thank you for our first segment to Claudia Aponte from the city. And guess what? It's the end of the program, but we'll be back next week with more.